Who was the biggest winner from week one of training camp for the Dallas Cowboys? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your
Locked
daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on
Cowboys.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, you're actually going out to training camp today to see the Cowboys' first padded practice. How you doing today, sir?
Well, I mean, it's finally here. We've been talking about it long enough, and we finally arrived at the day where training camp. I know training camp started technically last week, but and we're going to talk about some of the guys and how they looked in shorts. But I think today is the day where you really start to separate men from the boys, and all the other cliches you hear there. So I think today is the day that we start to really get to see what we've been dying to see.
Yeah, and a programming note, Landon, you and I are going to record a podcast as soon as camp is over. Look for it on YouTube. Quickly after we record it, it'll also be up in your podcast feeds late Monday night, early Tuesday morning. So be on the lookout for that. But today we are talking about the biggest winners from week one of camp. And I know we're talking about guys in shorts and t-shirts, but there's still some takeaways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Landon, who is your biggest winner from week one?
Well, I mean, I think it's not surprising because we've been kind of, talking about this player for a while, and he had kind of a highlight reel catch, which is always something that's going to grab the eyes a little bit. And we knew that TJ Vasher needed to have a big first week. We knew that before the pads came on, he needed to come out here and kind of establish himself as someone who is going to make a move, because he's kind of in this weird no man's land where he's not a guy who's going to play special teams. He's not, necessarily one of your top, as of right now, one of your top four receivers.
Mm-hmm.
So he needed to come out. He needs to come out and really separate himself literally from cornerbacks, but also figuratively from other wide receivers to kind of make a place for him on this team. The reviews seem to have come in. Obviously, like I said, the highlight catch he made in the end zone for a touchdown was great, but it does sound like beyond that, he had a really good starting week, and I look forward to him kind of carrying that into this week as well.
Yeah, this is somebody that we didn't get to see a lot last year in training camp at all because of an injury. Yeah. We had a feeling that he would look better here in year two, and I think we're all shocked about maybe how polished he's looked, and it seems like he has been one of their better receivers. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to make the team, but I think we at least have to have a conversation about should the Cowboys consider rostering him, because they just don't have anybody like him.
Yeah, that's the thing. He does have a unique set of skills, especially for this team. And I think that, it's going to be a difficult kind of math equation. He's really going to make the roster building exercise is very difficult. Yeah. Because again, he doesn't provide you with much of anything else on special teams, or at least we haven't seen that yet. So I'll be interested to see if they try to sneak him on some special teams. But I do think that as it stands right now, he's going to need to have a really great training camp to kind of make that 53-man roster. And if he doesn't, the Cowboys may have some very weird decisions on how exactly they want to either try to hold on to him through practice squad, trade him, or whatever they do. So it'll be interesting to see how that all fleshes itself out.
I want to bring up one more receiver really quickly as a winner, and this is about the least surprising thing ever, but Noah Brown seems like he's been one of the guys that's been consistent every single day. I've read reports about how he just kind of gets open, he catches everything, he's a reliable route runner. He's been there longer than any other receiver, right? I think so. He's the longest tenured receiver on this team. It's not surprising to me that he's having a strong camp. And Landon, it wouldn't be surprising to me at all if we open week one and he's one of their starting three receivers. Would not shock me at all.
No, I don't think it would. Look, he kind of got drafted as we all talk about him being like a special teams player and kind of playing that light end position, but I mean, he was really drafted as a developmental guy. I mean, he has the physical traits you want as a wide receiver. He was big. I mean, I think he came in with very similar kind of looking numbers as Des Bryant, if I remember, 6'2", 220 plus. I think he ran a 4.4-ish 40 at his pro day at the combine. So, I mean, having been in the league for it seems like a decade at this point. I mean, he came in with Zeke, right?
2017,
or the year after.
The next year.
Yeah, the year after, right? It's one of those things where he's been a developmental wide receiver for 5 years, and to his credit, every year he's gotten better. Every year he's splashed here and there, but it's always been about can he be a reliable, consistent target? Obviously, Cedric Wilson kind of stole some glory there, but I think we all know how good Cedric Wilson is, and that's nothing to kind of be a mark against you. So there's no reason that Noah Brown couldn't come in and couldn't have taken this year to really kind of develop himself into a guy who could be a useful offensive weapon. I think beyond just being a special teams player and a guy who comes in as a strong blocker in motion sets. He has the physical tools to be a difficult to cover wide receiver. It's always been about him developing the skill set part.
Again, not surprised at all. He's having a good camp. I'm not going to be surprised when the pads come on and he looks really good because he can do things as a blocker.
That's right.
He can play a lot of different roles. I think he's going to have a bigger part in this offense than many Cowboy fans are anticipating. We're going to get to some more winners and not necessarily losers, but guys that maybe should have played a little bit better in practice. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about Dave. If you're living paycheck to paycheck or struggling to make ends meet, it can be really stressful when unexpected expenses come up. But now Dave can help you get out of a pinch when you really need it. Dave is the banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. That is more money to fill your tank, buy a wedding gift, or catch up on bills. You can finally tackle those expenses that have been stressing you out without any hangups. There is no interest and no credit check needed. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get the financial relief that they need with extra cash. So if you're in a pinch and you need some extra help, download Dave and think of it as a helping hand from future you. Download the Dave app from the App Store right now. That is DAVE. Sign up for an extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve. Member FDIC. All right, Landon, the next one I want to talk about is Jabril Cox. Again, no pads. I'm going to keep stressing that. No pads, but this is where somebody like Jabril Cox can shine. And we've already seen it, right? Running sideline to sideline, making plays in coverage. He looks healthy. He looks like he's back to the version that we saw at LSU. And that's really exciting because the Cowboys haven't had a linebacker like this in a long time that can really cover, that can really run. I'm excited.
Yeah, not since Michael Parsons.
They're different, though. Different.
Yeah, they're different. They're different.
I was going to say, not since Kevin Burnett.
Man, Kevin Burnett. That was.
That's the last one that's kind of been like this, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting because Kevin Burnett is a great comparison too. Just like an ace special teams player, a guy who, honestly, like if he had just been able to stay healthy, and I hope that that's not obviously Jabril Cox's path as well, but Burnett really struggled to stay on the field, but had so much talent, had so much speed, had so much athleticism in that package. I think as far as playing styles, I'll definitely feel comfortable comparing them. Maybe, hopefully, not career paths, but
I do more Dexter Coakley, right?
There we go, Dexter Coakley. I think you look at what this team, let's flash back 5 years ago, right? Less than that, 3 or 4 years ago, when you had Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch as your linebacker core. Now, I think you could probably get away. We've talked about this at the time. You could probably get away with one of those guys, but you needed somebody. They're two thumpers. They needed
you just
somebody
can't play linebacker with 255-pound guys at that position anymore. You just can't.
You can't. And they needed a guy to be a real true run and hit linebacker. And then, obviously Dan Quinn enters the scene, and you certainly really, really need those guys. So Parsons obviously was a pick. Leighton Vander Esch has been playing better football and has dropped a little bit of weight, but he still isn't quite the guy. Jabril Cox was the guy when we drafted him in was it the 5th round pick, I think?
Fourth round.
Fourth round. Yeah. But
Yep.
we all expected him to go in the 2nd round. And, I think that the highlights that you've seen tweeted out shows a guy who has that speed that we talked about, coming out of college. He definitely has a skill set that is greatly desired in this defense.
And it's unique. They just don't have
Yep.
anybody like him, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've tried to kind of cobble it together with safeties at different points, and some linebackers, obviously. But he kind of is like the kind of midway point between I don't want to say a Leighton Vander Esch, but between a linebacker and a curse type safety, right?
I think the difference for me is he's got the athleticism and the size to cover, but he also has the instincts. And I think that's a little bit different. Like you can watch his film at LSU, or even at the Senior Bowl, like his coverage instincts are so good. He just has a feel of when a tight end's going to break and where he needs to be. He's so good in zone coverage. If they can keep him healthy and he's starting to play with those instincts and trust his reads, man, you could be getting a really, really good weak side linebacker.
Well, what opposing offenses don't want to see of this defense is having them get another fast instinctual player. I mean, this defense is already filled with guys who can run and are instinctual. And I think adding another one at a position like linebacker, where you can get, another guy close to the line of scrimmage, screaming at sub 4.5 speed.
Yep.
That's just going to make things even more scary. So, yeah, I do think that him being on the field is a win, at this point.
Yes.
Because
my gosh,
of the ACL.
Yeah.
So for the fact that he's a winner simply for being on the field and recovering so quickly from that ACL injury. And the Cowboys are winners for having him for getting him back,
Yeah.
But I think that beyond that, the play so far sounds like it's been really encouraging. I know he's ready, and I'm certainly ready to see him with the pads on.
He got multiple practices in before August 1st.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Now, I want to see how he plays with the pads because that's always been a little bit of the weakness of his game, like taking on blocks and stuff.
Yep.
But that's okay. The Cowboys can live with that as a weakness if you're going to be excellent in coverage. They can find ways to mitigate that. So, Jabril Cox, to me, the biggest winner of camp so far. Do you got another one for us, Landon?
I've seen. I mean, again, like we're peeking through keyholes here, so it's more of just like guys you've seen highlights of, guys you've seen whispers of. It sounds like this, and every year, right? This is this year's guy. Not so much Turpin, who was a guy that they signed as a USFL player. I think he's going to be great, and I think he's looked pretty good. I'm going to go with, and I don't think I have his first name right. Is it Daniel Houston?
Yes.
The wide receiver. This is another guy that, we kind of had brought up a little bit, during our coverage of undrafted free agents and the draft picks that we got. He's a guy that you heard a little bit about in OTAs, that they liked him or that he was kind of impressive and making plays. And what does he come out and do? What do we talk about all the time? We talk about drum beats, shout out to Sigmund Bloom and Cecil Lammey for that. But the drum beat of a guy like Houston kind of continually making plays in OTAs, and then transferring that to the playing field in Oxnard and
Dennis Houston, by the way. I'm sorry.
Dennis Houston. Thank you. I'm sorry. I think that's the kind of thing that you look for with these guys. Now, look, we literally spent a podcast, I think it was late last week, listing off all the undrafted free agent wide receivers over the years who have shined and then never kind of did anything. So, and again, as we've already caveated, all this is without pads. But Dennis Houston is a guy that the drumbeat has started for. So just like those other guys, you have to at least keep eyes on him if the drumbeat continues, if this guy keeps making plays, then you start questioning, hey, can he play some special teams? What? All right, can he play? If he can play special teams, suddenly you're having a conversation about, do we have to find a way to get Dennis Houston on the team? So that's something to keep an eye on.
Houston ran a 4.41 at the NFL Combine. Super productive out of Western Illinois. So we'll see. My guess is he's probably more of a practice squad guy. That
I would think so.
Maybe more the TJ Vasher role, where hey, we're going to stash you for a year. Let's see what you can do next year. But if you're making plays at this point in camp and you can continue through the preseason, you never know. We've seen these kind of players sneak onto the practice squad before or onto the active roster. Just keep an eye on Dennis Houston. Seems like he's outperformed Ty Freifogel. I know Ontario Drummond hasn't practiced yet because he's on the PUP, but it wouldn't be surprising if he kind of leapfrogged those guys here in training camp.
Yeah.
All right, I've got one more that I want to talk about, Lena. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is the fastest and the easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. Find all of your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I've got one more that I want to talk about, unless you've got one. Do you have any more?
No, I mean, I think, it's really just kind of seeing what these guys look like coming in this first week. So I'm open to whoever you've got.
Yeah, Sam Williams for me.
Yeah.
We've only seen flashes, but it's kind of the combination of some of the clips that we've seen, how the Cowboys are using him, and then how everybody's talking about him. Like Jerry Jones could not stop glowing about Sam Williams. He's been getting a lot of attention from Dan Quinn. Micah Parsons said he's somebody that's going to add a lot of speed and juice to the defense. It doesn't sound like it's been too big for him so far, and that was a little bit of my concern. I know he's not a polished player or anything like that, but it at least seems like he belongs and it's going to have some type of role as a rookie. And listen, I wasn't always convinced of that because they do have some depth at defensive end, but it sounds like so far so good for Sam Williams.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing that that we need to remember about Sam Williams is he played in the SEC at a crazy high level. I mean, wasn't he defensive player of the year for SEC last year?
He finished second in sacks behind only Will Anderson, who had one of the best college seasons in the history of college football. But that's what I said. He had second in
Will
sacks.
Anderson's pretty good.
Yeah, second in sacks and, was really, really good.
Yeah, I think, we kind of continually kind of talk about this developmental label because he is raw. I mean, there's certainly nothing.
Yes.
There is lots to that. I mean, I certainly don't want to discount what we've been saying. I think the other part, too, is that while still being raw, he dominated SEC competition. And that
in a scheme that didn't help him.
No, absolutely not. And, he's playing basically a head-up 5-tech, maybe a shade outside the tackle, which, with his explosiveness and his length, he's playing 3 technique half the time, which is doing fine. But it's like, anyways, but my point being is that this is a guy who has a lot of tools, and he has a lot of tools that he was availing himself against the top competition that he had available to him. So, I think for me, the excitement for Sam Williams was physically seeing him stand next to some of these guys. He's not undersized. He's not small. You saw him line there was one point where they were watching going through drills or whatever, and he's standing next to Golson and I think it was Armstrong and Basham, and he looks similarly sized to them. He looks like he's physically belongs there, and he's not like this. I think that at least I kind of got this impression that he's a longer arm, but maybe shorter. Kind of a more explosive type, but he is a full-size defensive end that is playing with that kind of explosion. So
he runs a 4.46.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, man. So like I think that was what was fascinating to me for Sam Williams. You saw a little bit of clips. I mean, again, we're talking about no pads, but I think for me, and again, a lot of what I'll do today too is at practice is it's kind of just getting a feel for what these guys look like in comparison to these other players and how big and 4.46. Like, what does that mean? I need to see that in like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
package and how that guy moves.
It,
So
it is strange because man, you can see somebody listed like on mock draftable at 6'4", 255, but until you see what their frame looks like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's it's a strange thing. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's really, the first thing you kind of do, at least when I go to camp, is kind of, calibrate your brain to people's, physical movement and how they look when they move and stuff. And it helps you down the road when you're trying to identify the players later and you can't see their numbers,
Right.
right? So, but I mean, the thing that was fascinating with me with Sam was his production, his ability to kind of keep up. That's all great. The physicality, the fact that he has, he's built like a ready-made defensive end.
Correct.
When you're talking about explosive players in the NFL, a lot of times they come in undersized. They come in looking like linebackers, like, and then they kind of have to build up to that sort of
Mhm.
professional defensive end body. He looks like he's already there, which is really, really impressive.
And that's what's so exciting. Week 1 of practice looks like he belongs. If he
Yeah.
can continue to develop and when the pads come on and play well, maybe he'll have a bigger than expected role this year on the defense. Maybe he is somebody when the Cowboys get to 3rd and 9, they want him on the field because he's just so unique with the speed. He's a guy that I'm really interested in watching this week throughout the preseason, and then of course during the regular season. We want to thank you guys for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen today. Now make your second listen to Locked On NFL podcast. Our national NFL experts and insiders keep fans dialed in with the biggest stories and the latest news from around the league because an offseason doesn't equal a break in the action. Make sure you follow Landon today on Twitter at McCoolBCB. He's going to be providing updates from the Cowboys' first pad of practice. Landon, I'm excited for you to get in there and actually, get close to the action and tell us what's going on.
Me too. So yeah, make sure you guys follow me on Twitter. Make sure you follow Marcus as well, and check out the feed because we'll definitely be doing shows after the pod. I mean, pods after the practices. And who knows? I mean, I'm in Oxnard all week, so maybe there's still be some special broadcasts.
There
Who
you go.
knows?
Follow Locked On Cowboys wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on YouTube. We'll see you guys later today, later on Tuesday. Enjoy practice, everybody. Football is officially back.
Ah.